Okay, then I think we've got a pretty smart group. You've figured it out already. There is a chat box, and I'm going to start with some opening comments that'll take about 20 minutes. Then you're going to break into groups, and I'll talk about that in a bit later. But what I'll ask you to do is, while I'm talking, you can chat if you like in the text box, but we'll probably have to keep ourselves to one microphone on at the time. So I think most of you found the speak button at the bottom. That's a toggle. You turn it on and off. So I have it on now because I'm speaking. The rest of you keep it off. We won't get feedback. Otherwise, we'll pick up all the sounds at your houses and everything like that too. So you can put it on and off. And when you go into your groups later, though, you'll want to be sure that you can talk. So I'll get to that later. But while I'm just doing some opening comments, I would like it, if you just keep your mic off, unless you have something you really want to say, then, but we don't want to have too many mics on at once. So does that make sense? Okay, it doesn't seem like I can pull anything over in this group. This island, just to give you a little background, the college has owned this island for almost 10 years. And what you'll want to do later is go around and look at the different objects that are on the island. So you'll get a chance to see what the college has owned. Now, somebody still has a mic on. We're getting a little feedback loop. Yeah.
It's Ms. Pat.
Uh-oh.
Pat, her microphone. There we go.
There. Yeah, thanks. And some of you are more proficient than others with, oops, sorry. I'm one of the ones. The new version is such that if you click 2 times, you walk in that direction. So that's why I went walking. Now I do see Laura, I think, is sitting on top of Auburn. And if you want to get up, you should see that both of you have stand-up buttons. And you could stand up and pick a separate seat if you like. Now, if you look to your left, there are some directions on a board over there. What you want to, we're not going to do exciting things in Second Life until maybe later if you like. I have another faculty member who creates beautiful clothes, and that's why I look so lovely. She's given them to me. We might ask later if you want to ever come on an extra tour, we'll go with her, but we're going to be mostly talking and doing some primitive walking around here. But one of the things you'll want to be able to do is zoom in on the face of the speaker. So just practice for a moment. Bring your mouse over me, and you should see when you press Alt, you get what's called a magnifying glass. You can click on me or whatever you want to focus on, and by doing that, by clicking on me, you'll be able to zoom in and zoom out. And so just practice zooming in and zooming out for a minute. I will bring over a couple of other files here. Oh, and I just wanted to show there's some pictures of me, the real me right now, the me that I used to be, and the avatar that you see was created by a faculty member who's very good, and she kind of looked at what I used to look like and gave me a little help. So later on, we might all want to go to her and see what she can do for us. Now I just switched up a picture here that kind of embodies the educational philosophy that I use myself. And you'll have a lot of independent assignments, But with teaching today, it's going to be important that you have a lot of peers and peer support. So it's very important. These virtual meetings to me are a way that we can get together and get to know each other without being in the same building. And it would be nice if we could get together, but I think most of you didn't want to come up to Albany tonight, so we're going to do this virtually. But the idea of collaboration's an important learning concept for me. But could you tell me in the chat, how many of you have ever used virtual spaces before, either as a game or in another class? Tell me yes or no if you, okay, so let's see. Okay, the nevers outrank. Okay, but we do have a few of you that have done it. Most of you will be learners tonight, and that's a good place for a teacher to be in, to get a little chance as a learner. You're not being tested on Second Life. You know, it's fine to bump into each other, see if you can get some help, have some fun with it, but you're going to be learners, but there's going to be no test. Second Life is just a meeting place for us. Now you might do me a favor, see if you can zoom in on this. And you can do that, remember, bring your mouse over, click onto the slide and just zoom into it. This isn't to scare you, we're working on this, but right now there has been a big emphasis put on improving learning throughout the entire country. And a number of you are working in schools right now. I'm assuming you're observing in schools, but what you want to understand today is you're being evaluated because you're going to be a new teacher, but all teachers in public schools are being evaluated. So what I'd like you to let me know in the chat, I'm getting a beep somewhere and I'm not quite sure what that is. Let me know in the chat, have you been at school districts and are you hearing much scuttlebutt yet about the testing that teachers are going through? Okay, we've got a range of answers here, but I think most of you are hearing something, and I saw an oh yes. Right now, what you'll see up in this chart are actually things that the entire education system is looking at. Another thing you've probably heard in schools is something called Race to the Top. That was federal funding that was given in New York State so that schools could improve, and a lot of that has created this evaluation of teachers. So it's not just pre-service teachers or new teachers that are being evaluated. This is all teachers. And so you will be hearing about that. We'll be talking about it more in the class later. If you look, most of these items here are areas that all teachers are being evaluated on. In the bottom right corner, you should see something called EdTPA. And that's teacher performance. That's the new exit exam that you will be taking from New York State. And part of what you have to do there is create a video of your own classroom. And you'll submit the video to a company, through a company called Pearson's, but it will be reviewed by external reviewers. And by that I mean not MAT faculty, not Empire State College faculty. And so this is a challenge that we're working on, getting you ready for that. So you'll see embedded in the course, let me see if the next slide here, let me bring this over. See if you can focus in on that. There'll be a lot of different things you'll do as teachers. At some times you'll be doing lecturing, other times you'll be having students doing worksheets. But what will be required when you turn in the video is the state wants to see how you actually conduct a class. Excuse me, I should say conduct a lab. So that core of getting students involved, and these will be some of the things we'll work on in your lesson plans, will have students looking at a science phenomenon itself, and your job as a teacher is going to be to get them, first of all, curious about the phenomenon, and then do things like have them gather data. We'll be using spreadsheets, we'll be using data probes, but the students need to gather data and talk about it. And the government, and also good education practice, says you learn the most when you're actively engaged. So if you could just go in the chat box, I'm curious, when you observe schools, how much just tell me, do you see the focus being more the teacher talking or students working? Just tell me in the chat what you see most of. Interesting. You're seeing a spectrum, and I think, as Erin was saying too, she's seeing that as teachers get more advanced, they do more engaging of students. Danny's seeing about 75% lecture. A lot of you are seeing combinations. Ideally you have combinations, but the tendency in the past has been doing too much of what I'm doing right now, lecturing. So the goal is to move you to getting your teachers doing real science, real analysis, and have them talking. So you'll see that embedded in the lessons. We're going to be, for the first 2 weeks, just kind of getting started up, but after that you're going to be really focusing on lessons that have you putting the students in the center. And this is kind of the last slide before we get directions to go on your own. See if you can zoom in and read this, and I'll give you a minute. Remember to bring the mouse over it, hold down Alt, click, and you can zoom in. That's one way to zoom in. There are other ways. This quote is taken from the Key framework that's just been republished for good science teaching. It's the basis of the expectations in the video. Okay, were you able to get a quick read through on that? Okay, so that's going to actually be the emphasis of this first week, the first 2 weeks in the course. I'll tell you, I've visited probably 400 schools at this point, 400 visits. Most of them at Empire State College. I also used to work for RPI, which is an engineering school here, which had a teacher program for a while. I've taught at SUNY Albany. I've taught at SUNY Oneonta, and I've done visits to schools in most of these. And I see good science being taught, but it's often taught in parts and pieces. You know, you do a really nice titration here. You do a really good weather station in earth science. The pieces aren't always connected. That sense of wonder that you see in this perspective over here in the quote from the standards isn't there. Kids don't make all the connections. And so one of the things I've been looking at over the past couple of years is the concept of, is there a narrative? Is there a way we can organize a class so that it has some intrinsic connections? And then not every single aspect of your lesson is reflected in the narrative, but if you have a theme, you're going to have a much more motivated classroom. And you may have looked a little bit at the handout that I sent out, because there are ideas in there, but just chat with me for a minute. Tell me places that you see science in the media today that you think interest kids. Now just give me some things you've seen. Good. I can see, yep, that's exactly what I want you to be thinking about. Think about what makes science interesting. Even some of the reality games, reality shows. I've seen one in cooking where everybody's given the challenge of some kind of recipe to cook. That could be a chemistry show. You could have a challenge chemistry problem. You know, the plants in the hotel are dying. You know, what chemistry lab can solve the problem. You can have contests. You've got Mythbusters. I didn't see Dirty Jobs come up. You've had space explorations. What you're going to do this week, and it's really written out because your assignment is going to get you to think about your content area, but when I made these groups, I deliberately put you not in your content area because I want you to think outside the box, and I also want you to get to know a bunch of people in the class. You're going to look at the assignment and you're going to start brainstorming different roles, different narratives, different stories that could be in your class either for the whole semester or for a unit. You know, do you have a class of Mythbusters? You know, that would work well in physics. Last year, in the fall, I had somebody pick a survival theme. He likes survival, and he was an earth science teacher, and he had Sandy come along, and he was out on Long Island, and he had lots of real work to do. So if you have some imagination, some excitement, some interest in science itself that you're putting into your lessons, you're going to get a lot more of this motivation that's here in the slide. And so it's non-trivial to really think about, you know, some of the things that make science something you want to learn. So I have one last slide here. Let me pull it over. Now I'm going to give you a challenge, and I sent out the teams. The biggest challenge we're going to have, first of all, is to get you to figure out who your teammates are and then find a place to go to. So that's just going to be a fun challenge. But you'll be finding some spot on the islands, and you want to move in such a way that you don't overlap and hear each other. But I just want to warn you, people can come into the island and they can hear you. So I always try to remember that whatever I hear could be heard by another student that comes in or other faculty. So just keep that in mind. No, you know, it's not a private space. It's owned by the college, but it is. We rent the server space from Second Life, and other people can show up. So just keep that in mind. you're going to find a place on the island and you'll brainstorm ideas in your different content areas. I'll ask the documenter to take notes and make up a little PowerPoint. Do take a picture of yourself. You'll see it. I always want to make sure everybody showed up. That's part of my attendance, but it's also fun. And start brainstorming, and in your PowerPoint, put your ideas, schematics. It doesn't have to be terribly formal. The idea is to get out as many ideas as possible. The documenter then should upload the PowerPoint, and if it's too big, put it in SlideShare. Although even SlideShare is now starting to charge more money. But upload the PowerPoint with the ideas back into Angel, and then during the rest of the week, if you would please go in, look at the ideas, comment, because by the weekend you're going to have to flesh it out into an assignment. And so the more that you can interact with each other and generate ideas, the better off you'll be at the end of the week. So does that sort of make sense? Do you have questions before we break up? Yeah, all you're going to do is make a PowerPoint. The directions are in the course too, in case I miss something, and you can always email me. I may visit a little bit, but you're all going to go in different directions. So if you have some specific question, you can email me. But this is a rather informal icebreaker assignment. The idea is to get you thinking creatively, and creativity is important in science too, so don't worry about that. You'll summarize your ideas in a PowerPoint, and the documenter will be in charge of doing that summarizing and uploading it. But we're going to rotate that position, so don't worry, you won't get stuck doing it all the time. And I'm excited about seeing the ideas. This is probably my favorite part of the course before we have to get into all the analysis and rubrics. So this is a chance for you to meet your teammates, get your virtual sea legs, and share some ideas in the class.